She thought it was just an adventure, something thrilling, something new. But when the truth hit, it shattered everything. Now, she's desperate to undo the damage, but some betrayals can't be undone. My wife wanted to open our marriage, and now I have a new lover. She deeply regrets everything. Never in my life did I imagine reaching this point. Yet here we are. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, married for 8. We met in college and were each other's first and only love. I truly believed our relationship was rare and beautiful because of that, but it turns out I was the only one who thought so. Some time ago, my wife started working at a new company. Initially, she found it challenging to fit in since she has always been reserved. However, with my encouragement, she made friends with a group of women, some single, others divorced, and a few in relationships but not married. At first, I was happy she found companionship, but soon she began going out for drinks and partying. I grew concerned about her sudden change in behavior and tried to discuss it with her. At the same time, I didn't want to restrict her freedom. Gradually, this shift started affecting our relationship, especially in the bedroom. My wife was never the one to initiate intimacy, but after she started going out frequently, she was either too exhausted or simply not in the mood. Then, a new manager joined her company, and my wife, along with her friends, seemed to admire him. She casually mentioned him at first, but eventually, she began highlighting how he handled various situations, ones that didn't always seem work-related. When I questioned her about her fascination with him, she dismissed my concerns. Around the same time, she started asking if I regretted not having more experience with other women. I firmly told her no, because she was everything I ever needed. For a fleeting moment, I noticed sadness in her eyes, but she quickly changed the subject. Soon after, she brought up the idea of an open marriage as a way to spice things up. I was taken aback because she had never been this type of person before. I immediately refused and asked if this had anything to do with her new manager. She denied it, but admitted she felt like she had missed out on life experiences. At the same time, she didn't want to lose me, so she thought this was a safer option. I wondered if she was playing with fire. Yet, despite my hesitation, I naively agreed. For a year, my wife went on dates, had one-night stands, and, unsurprisingly, entered a relationship with that manager. Meanwhile, I had a few dates, but never engaged in casual flings because it didn't feel right. She would check in to see if I was okay, but her concern never changed her behavior. Over time, the love I had for her began to fade, and it was slowly destroying me from within. Then, everything changed when I went on a date with an incredible woman who had immigrated from South Korea. One date led to another, and eventually, we became intimate. I had never experienced that level of passion and connection before. She was selfless, making me feel wanted in a way I never knew possible. At first, my wife found it amusing, but as months passed, she began questioning my relationship with my lover. I reminded her that this was her idea and pointed out that she was in a full-fledged relationship with the very manager I was once worried about. She fell silent, as if she wanted to say something but held back. Suddenly, she started changing. She began coming home early to surprise me with dinner and made sure the house was spotless. She even started bringing lunch to my workplace and initiated intimacy, something she had rarely done before. Honestly, if this had happened before she opened our marriage, I would have been overjoyed. But now, I could barely respond to her advances. When I did, it felt like a chore rather than an expression of love. Something inside me had died, and it wasn't the same anymore. I asked her what caused this sudden transformation. She said she wanted to show me that she loved me and was happy with me. I never meant to, but I burst out laughing. I asked her about her little group of friends, her manager-turned-lover, and all her meaningless flings. She had no response. She just quietly went to bed in tears. The next evening, I came home to find her waiting for me. She told me she wanted to close our marriage. She admitted that the entire experience had been a terrible mistake. She deeply regretted everything and wanted to focus on rebuilding our relationship. I asked her to be completely honest and tell me what had led to all of this in the first place. And wouldn't you know it, It was her so-called friends who planted the idea in her head. They constantly talk about their numerous sexual encounters, and when her manager entered the picture, he encouraged her to embrace that lifestyle. She confessed that it started as an emotional affair and only became physical after our marriage was officially open. She compared the experience to being drunk behind the wheel of a speeding car, thrilling and intoxicating, but ultimately destructive. Now, she realized she never needed any of it. What we had was rare and special, and she felt as though she had destroyed our marriage and any chance of a future together. I told her that I might never be able to see her as my wife again. That statement shattered her. She broke down in front of me. I didn't say anything. I just held her as she cried herself to sleep in my arms on the couch. Since then, she has resigned from her job and cut off all ties with her toxic friends and the manager. But as for me, I haven't ended things with my lover. Quite frankly, she makes me feel like a man. The truth is, I don't know what to do. I would love to reclaim the special bond one once had with my wife, but my lover was the one who saved me when I was at my lowest. In an attempt to gain clarity, I decided to seek therapy. The therapist was professional, unbiased, and genuinely eager to help. During our very first session, my wife used the opportunity to confess everything. She admitted that her friends made her question whether she had missed out on life by being committed to her first boyfriend. When the new manager started showing interest, those same friends encouraged her to see where things go, convincing her that this was her chance to explore and find herself. She obviously felt guilty, so she never did anything physical, until one of her divorced friends suggested an open marriage as a loophole. They told her that some couples come out stronger because of it. After reluctantly convincing me to agree, her so-called adventure began. It was intoxicating and blinding, but lacked the deep connection we had built over the years. She started to question her reasons for doing this. She said she could see the hurt in my eyes, but told herself it was just an adventure. The weight of it all never really hit her until she noticed a change in me. She suddenly felt a pit in her stomach and began experiencing panic attacks for no apparent reason. Seeking advice from her friends again, they dismissed her concerns, telling her my reaction was normal during the adventure. But as she reflected on it, she realized how ridiculous it all was. Desperate to win me back, she begged for their support, but they coldly reminded her that she was the one who opened the marriage. At that moment, she recognized these people as toxic, a threat to our marriage and the life we had built together. Determined to fix things, she tried everything to win me back. Meanwhile, I didn't share much, but I did inform the counselor about my situation, especially the fact that my lover was still in the picture. The counselor stated that no resolution could ever be reached unless my lover was out of the equation. We scheduled another session for the following day. During our second counseling session, I asked if she was absolutely sure nothing physical had happened before we opened our marriage. She looked down and begged me not to make her say it, insisting it would destroy us. But after some pressing, she admitted that while it wasn't physical, she and the other man had touched themselves in front of each other. She had convinced herself that because there was no physical contact, it wasn't technically cheating. I was floored. She immediately broke down, shaking and hyperventilating, snot running from her nose as she sobbed and apologized. Even the counselor looked taken aback. My wife collapsed onto her knees, clutching my legs, pleading for forgiveness. I asked her what had really changed her perception of this man. She recounted an evening when, after leaving a meeting, she overheard him talking to a male colleague in his office. He bragged about how easy it was to get her, saying she was proof that you couldn't trust the quiet ones. When the colleague asked if he actually had feelings for her, he laughed and said she was just a pleasant distraction, adding that he had no intention of breaking up with his fiancée. He even mentioned that he felt bad for me but justified it by saying, "You snooze, you lose." Hearing this, my wife realized she had meant nothing to him. She had betrayed me for a cheap thrill. The shame overwhelmed her to the point that, in that moment, she wanted to end herself. She left work and vomited in the parking lot. I then asked if she had ever loved him, and more importantly, when she stopped loving me. She looked me dead in the eye, tears streaming down her face, and said she never stopped loving me. That honestly made it worse. She had mistaken lust and excitement for love, and now realized how foolish she had been. She clutched my arm tightly, saying she knew she had messed up, but missed what we had before. She even suggested we move away and start fresh, just the two of us, as it was meant to be. I told her it wouldn't be fair to my lover, and that I needed time apart to process everything. She sobbed harder, clinging to me as if I would vanish. The counselor managed to convince her that some time apart might actually help us heal. When we got home, I began packing. As I did, my wife received a video call on her laptop from one of her former friends who was in tears. It turned out that after my wife resigned, this friend and the manager she had been involved with started their own affair. But now, the friend was facing a pregnancy scare. To make things worse, she had a boyfriend whom she had actually seen a future with. The only reason she had an affair, she admitted, was because she was curious about the experience. Her boyfriend discovered everything when he found an email between her and the manager discussing potential pregnancy. The manager, however, accused her of trying to baby trap him. I simply turned and walked away. Since then, I have been staying in an apartment. On my brother's advice, I consulted a divorce lawyer, just to be safe. At this point, I don't feel willing to fight for the marriage anymore, and my wife seems to sense it. Before I left, she tried to initiate intimacy, but when I refused, she snapped, asking, "What does your lover do for you that I can't?" I didn't answer. I simply shook my head and told her, "If you still don't understand after everything that happened, then it's clear where our marriage is headed." Then I walked away. The sad truth is that she would do anything to turn back time and undo her mistakes. But life doesn't work that way. Good luck to you, Rain.